helping add to the thousands of files the ministry had gathered for decades. Now that they're being released from the vaults, key UFO eyewitnesses give their side of the stories. And UFO experts, skeptics and believers interrogate just what the MOD was keeping secret. Dr. David Clark is the journalist who helped first persuade the MOD to release the files.
If you look in the files, there are thousands of unusual things people in the sky from right across the British Isles. There's absolutely no doubt that people see things in the sky that they can't identify. They always have done.
January 6th, 1995. Two experienced pilots of a Boeing 737 carrying 60 passengers from Milan to Manchester report a near collision. It's an incredible sighting of an unidentified flying object which sends the authorities into a spin.
In the defence files, there are quite a number of incidents involving near misses between civil aircraft and unidentified flying objects. The most impressive of all was a report that was made by the crew of a British Airways 737.
Speedbird 5061, overhead pylons 9 miles.
They were just about to enter this cloud bank, quite a clear sky, good sort of vision. Suddenly the first officer said he saw this object coming towards him like an illuminated Christmas tree.
What the hell?
It was so low in its approach and so close that he automatically ducked, thinking there was going to be a collision. And this thing just zoomed past, and immediately he turned to the captain and said, "Did you see that?" The captain said, "Yeah, I saw it as well."
Immediately the pilots radioed into Manchester Control Tower.
There's a lot of concern amongst air crews about what damage could be done to the reputation if they became known as, you know, the crew that see flying saucers. So it was interesting in this case that despite that, these two air crew decided that when they landed they were going to file an official air miss report. So that would then trigger a full detailed investigation by the Civil Aviation Authority, which is exactly what happened.
For the first time, the MOD files show how this extraordinary incident sparked a full-scale investigation conducted by aircraft near-miss investigator Anthony Booth.
Well, it was unusual for a start because it was the only one in my memory in 7 years of working in that particular department that I'd actually dealt with something like this. We could talk to the pilots, both the pilots. We would go through looking at radar recordings, RT transcript recordings of the voices of the pilots, recordings of what Manchester Air Traffic Control had to say. We just looked at anything that might shed some light on what this object might have been.
The pilots now refuse to talk publicly about the near crash, but the MOD files recall what they told Anthony Booth at the time.
My attention was initially focused on the glare shield in front of me, but I was diverted by something in my peripheral vision. The object had a number of small white lights, rather like a Christmas tree. The high speed of the object, although unable to estimate its distance, it was very close.
There's a transcript of the conversation between the captain of the 737 and ground control.
So this is Speedbird 5061. We just had something go down the right-hand side, just above us, very fast.
And Manchester immediately come back and say, well, there's nothing seen on radar.
Was it an aircraft? Well, it had lights. It went down the starboard side very quickly.
Manchester say, and just above you?
Just slightly above us, yes.
Manchester then advised them to keep an eye out for anything, but they can't see anything at all. It must have been very fast.
So we'll go down very quickly after it passed you, I think. Okay, well, there you go.
The Manchester Control Tower could not find any radar signal. To radar expert Doug Robb, this is extraordinary.
It says the likelihood of such activity escaping detection is remote, as the area is well served by several radars, and any movement at the levels in question would almost certainly have generated a radar response. Nothing was seen.
So what was it that avoided radar detection? The MOD files show that the investigators and pilots considered all the possibilities.
It was a hang glider.
At night, he's suicidal.
I think hang glider would not be picked up by normal radar, no.
Comet?
No, I don't think so.
A meteor could be detected on re-entry if the radar was looking exactly in the right direction as that piece of debris went past at some speed.
Military?
Maybe, but I didn't recognise it. But we're near a major airport. It would have shown up on the radar response.
Spy plane?
I don't think so. Didn't look like a stealth.
Stealth aircraft, would not be picked up by normal radars. If a spy plane is being kept secret, it's not going to be flying where people can see it, and certainly nowhere near airliners.
UFO?
That'd be daft. I don't know.
These pilots are not lying. They did have an unusual experience, which to them remains baffling.
The files show the investigation seriously analysed the possibility of military activity, but they found no evidence from any official source.
It seems most unlikely that such a flight would have been conducted so close to a busy international airport.
So what was it? We revealed the conclusion, locked away in the MOD vaults since 1995, reached by Anthony Booth's investigation.
Most of the incidents that we looked at, we could arrive at some conclusion, definite conclusion, but in this case, we couldn't really. We had to come up with an assessment of cause and risk. Both the risk and the cause were unassessable.
Degree of risk, unassessable. Cause, unassessable. Really, that statement is really, really unusual to find that in an official air miss report, and it's basically saying we don't have a clue what was seen.
What they'll say back at BA.
I think they might rib us about this one.
At the end of their the summary of the working group's discussions, it says that there is no doubt that these pilots both saw an object and that it was of sufficient significance to prompt an air miss report. Unfortunately, the nature and identity of this object remains unknown. To speculate about extraterrestrial activity, fascinating though it may be, is not within the group's remit and must be left to those whose interest lies in this field.
To some ufologists like Nick Pope, the absence of any real conclusion leaves serious and unanswered questions.
Now, to me, this was quite extraordinary. UFO does not mean alien spacecraft, but clearly, in some people's minds, whether it was the pilot and the first officer, or whether it was the investigators at the Civil Aviation Authority or the Ministry of Defence, clearly somebody was thinking, well, maybe, just maybe, this is something extraterrestrial.
I can't speculate on what it was, I really can't. I mean, I don't know to this day what it was. All I know is that we can't assume we know everything in this day and age. There may be things that we don't know about.
The Manchester near-miss investigation shows just how seriously unexplained sightings were taken by the MOD. But the UFO desk had been receiving reports from pilots for decades. The files reveal sightings during World War II, and in some cases these were considered so grave they were referred right to the top of government. The newly released UFO files confirm what many experts suspected. The British government was investigating unexplained sightings as far back as World War II.
I don't talk about it too much to people, only close friends who experienced perhaps flying during the war.
Spring 1944. Britain was engaged in heavy bombing raids over Germany. Rumours of strange, unidentified missiles were getting through to top command. Considered a threat to public morale, the MOD files reveal that the order to keep them secret came right from the top. Sightings, such as the one seen by gunner Bernard Dye.
Now I have here a personal wartime diary. I'll read you an entry which I wrote on the 26th of April. Operation Essen. 300 aircraft raided Essen.
Dye then recorded the most extraordinary sight.
By unidentified objects, which I describe as just red balls of fire.
This is the first time Bernard Dye has spoken on television about what happened that night.
We left the target area and we were heading back towards Mildenhall, our base. We were heading across France. Everything appeared to be peaceful. Suddenly I saw 3 balls of fire coming up from below and reported this to our pilot, Arthur Horton, on the intercom. A few seconds afterwards, the rear gunner, Brian Harper, he observed 2 more red balls of fire. Immediately, Arthur was a bit perturbed, and were they fighters? No, not fighters, Arthur, just balls of fire coming towards us. I said to Arthur, no, evasive action, corkscrew, starboard, go, go, go. We travelled over 300 miles per hour. The aircraft was shaking like a leaf, and still they were following. The pilot was getting worried about burning the engines up. Engineer, Dave, what about the engines? Never mind the engines, Skipper. keep going, or something to that effect. The words were rather rude. It certainly gave me and the crew the willies to see them. After a short distance, these 5 red objects, they just got slower, and the red lights disappeared into the blackness below, and we got safely home. Well, when we got back to Mildenhall, our base, you know, each crew was interrogated by intelligence officers, and they just laughed at us. And this upset the pilot, and, you know, he said, "You wouldn't bloody well have been laughing if you'd have been sitting with us in the aircraft."
What did Gunner Bernard Dye think they were?
Didn't know what to think, but I thought they were just a new weapon that the Germans had invented.
Bernard Dye was not alone. Other World War II aircrew had also reported unexplained sightings, and we now know that at least one of these reports was suppressed, and the order to do so came right from the top. Wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill was so terrified the report would leak out, he ordered a 50-year blackout.
Mr. Churchill declared that the UFO incident should be immediately classified for at least 50 years, and its status reviewed by a future Prime Minister.
Churchill's order referred specifically to a late World War II sighting made by a British aircrew returning from a reconnaissance mission over Germany. The files record,
"My grandfather was present during a debate about an unexpected incident experienced by an RAF bomber crew."
The MOD files show that the story originates from the grandson of Churchill's bodyguard, who had been present at an urgent meeting between the Prime Minister and the US commander of the Allied forces, General Eisenhower, who discussed the incident together.
He was writing in to see if the ministry could confirm this story, that this guy who was the bodyguard was present at a discussion between Winston Churchill and Eisenhower about a mysterious incident when the crew of a Royal Air Force reconnaissance aircraft that had seen this metallic object that had appeared by the side of their aircraft, and it followed the aircraft, and it behaved in a way that was completely unexplainable in terms of it being, you know, a German aircraft or any other sort of Nazi flying machine that they were aware of.
A leading aircraft expert was also at the meeting.
He dismissed any possibility that it could be a missile, since a missile could not suddenly match its speed with a slower aircraft and then accelerate again.
Churchill was determined this would go no further.
Another person at the meeting raised the possibility of an unidentified flying object, at which point Mr. Churchill declared that the incident should be immediately classified.
But the file goes further. One extraordinary line explains just how fearful Churchill was of public reaction to this UFO sighting, if it ever got out.
This event should be immediately classified, since it would create mass panic amongst the general population and destroy one's belief in the church.
But the files also reveal that this wasn't the first time Churchill had got embroiled in UFO sightings.
In October 1912, there was sightings of mysterious lights in the sky over the dockyards at Sheerness in Essex. Winston Churchill was the First Lord of the Admiralty, and he had to look into this, and Churchill had to admit in Parliament that he couldn't explain what had been seen.
The files show that even after the war, Churchill took a personal interest in unexplained sightings.
In the aftermath of the sightings in Washington, D.C. in 1952, that made all the news headlines, Winston Churchill again became interested and sent the memo to the Secretary of State for Air. What does all this stuff about flying saucers amount to? What can it mean? What is the truth? Let me have a report at your convenience.
Until now, Gunner Bernard Dye never knew there were other World War II sightings that Churchill wanted kept secret at such a critical time in the war. We showed him the newly released MOD file on Churchill.
Well, after reading this report, it sounds, you know, really identical to what we witnessed and saw that night. I haven't heard of this before, but it doesn't surprise me that he was told about it, because things happened during the war years, and there were other objects obviously appeared.
It's interesting that during the 1940s there were a very large number of sightings reported by aircrew, and there are various Royal Air Force files at the National Archives that detail some of these reports, rocket phenomena they were described as, but they were never able to explain them. And at the end of the war, when they debriefed some of the Luftwaffe pilots, they said that they'd seen very similar things themselves, and they thought they were Allied secret weapons.
So is there an explanation as to what the aircrew saw? Dave Clark has his own theory.
They just thought that it was a combination of misperception on part of the aircrew. They were expecting enemy action because they were so charged up on adrenaline.
UFO or not, the files show that the World War II leaders were desperate to keep such sightings away from the public. The next file reveals how, even decades later, the government was still panicking about UFOs. Many UFO experts believe that the Pitlochry file illustrates one of the most significant UFO conspiracies of recent times. It involves photographs of an unidentified object captured flying over a remote Scottish valley. The photos were sent to the MOD, but mysteriously went missing. Journalist Mark Pilkington has spent years trying to track down these UFO images.
The Pitlochry photographs in the MOD files date back to the 4th of August 1990, when two witnesses on the A9 near Calvine, near Pitlochry, allegedly saw a large diamond-shaped craft hovering in the air for about 10 minutes and took 6 photographs of it. And the object that they claimed to have seen was accompanied by 2 aircraft, which the MOD later identified as Harriers.
The photographer has never been identified. He sent the 6 photographs to the Scottish Daily Record newspaper. The paper never ran the story. Instead, they referred them to the MOD for investigation.
The Ministry of Defence took their own copies of the photographs, which have since disappeared. They, according to the files, sent the original negatives back to the Scottish Daily Record, which inexplicably never ran a story on the subject and never published the photographs, and presumably returned them to the 2 men whose names have been removed from the file, so we can't ask the 2 men. So mystery piled upon mystery.
All that remains in the files is a photocopy of the alleged photographs. Ufologists later mocked up this photo of what was seen. But Nick Pope dealt with the original photos and file when he worked behind the MOD desk.
Both the Defence Intelligence Staff and the Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Centre analysed this very carefully, and the consensus was clear on this. This was a real object. It was maybe 25, 30 metres in diameter. I sat down with my opposite number from the Defence Intelligence Staff at a briefing about UFOs. We discussed this photograph extensively. This was something that was of defence interest, because clearly it could do something that we couldn't, and we wanted that technology.
The MOD was determined to play down the incident.
There's an interesting briefing by the Ministry of Defence press office on defensive lines to take if these photographs made it into the newspapers, and they were asked questions about this. And there's a list that basically says that we have looked at the photographs and no definitive conclusions have been reached regarding the large diamond-shaped object. And if they were pressed by the media, they were told to say all sighting reports received by the Ministry are referred to the staff in the departments which are responsible for the air defence of the UK.
During his time with the Ministry, Pope had a blown-up copy of the photograph on his office wall, until it was personally taken down by his superior.
One suggestion was that this was a secret prototype American spy plane. My head of division convinced himself that this probably was some secret aircraft or drone, and he ordered that this be removed.
We know from the files that there was a lot of internal discussion about, were the Americans flying this incredible spy plane, and if so, why had they not asked for permission, for this thing to fly through British airspace?
Journalist Mark Pilkington believes that events at the time could well have influenced what people thought they had seen.
This was just 2 days after the first Gulf War had broken out, and there were certainly great deployments of aircraft towards the Middle East, and the UK was a kind of sort of stop-off point and a sort of launch pad for a lot of those aircraft.
The MOD were clearly worried about public reaction, just as Churchill had been 4 decades earlier. So was there a cover-up by the MOD over the mysterious Pitlochry photographs?
There's a possibility that the Ministry of Defence destroyed these images, possibly because they thought that they were some American spy plane that they'd rather we didn't know about, or maybe if this thing genuinely remained unexplained, because we simply didn't want the embarrassment of saying that there might be things in our airspace with speeds and manoeuvres that exceed everything that we've got, and yet which remain unexplained.
However, all we're basing this on, we should make clear, is a very grainy, fuzzy black and white image that, for all I know, could have been drawn by a child with crayons.
Mark Pilkington is still looking for the real Pitlochry photographs to find out just what did put Britain's defences to the test. But 6 years later, on Britain's east coast, another UFO sighting sparks off a full-scale military investigation and a direct challenge to the Secretary of State for Defence. In 1996, the Ministry of Defence was drawn into a serious breach of UK defences by a UFO over East Anglia. MOD files reveal it not only involved the police, Coast Guard and RAF, but a call to the Defence Secretary to scramble jet fighters.
I'm very concerned about an incident that occurred off the East Anglian coast recently involving a visual unidentified flying craft sighting that was correlated by various different military radar systems. Why weren't our jets scrambled?
It was one of the biggest UFO scares ever. And it all started one quiet October night on the East Coast.
It was the police officers, actually, who phoned in the first reports. There's an extract from that. In the early hours of the morning, the police are saying we can see a red and green rotating light in the sky directly southeast from Skegness. It looks to be high in the sky directly over the Wash.
Very nice.
The patrol officers reported the sighting to the station sergeant.
I immediately phoned it through to the Skegness control room, who relayed it onto Great Yarmouth Coast Guard Maritime Rescue, suspecting it might be an incident over the sea.
We had a report at about 3:15 local time from Skegness Police, and they could actually see this light in a southeasterly direction. We were uncertain of what it was at the time, and we immediately made a report to the local air defence radars to see if they could see anything.
The call went through to RAF Neatishead, the most important air defence centre in southern England.
Clyde radar has a contact bearing at 221 degrees at...
They noticed that on one of the radars, a blip that they couldn't identify, that wasn't an aircraft.
Could the mysterious radar blip and the strange lights seen by the police be the same thing? Panic calls from the public started to come in.
No, I don't think they're invading.
The call was put out to shipping to keep a lookout for unidentified lights. Then a tanker came back.
We're seeing a group of lights above the Wash.
The vessel at sea was the Connor Coast, and she was in much this sort of area.
At 3:50 a.m., Patrol Officer P.C. Leyland rushed onto the police station roof to video the strange lights and managed to capture 5 minutes of footage, now showing a single stationary white light. News of the sighting spread quickly through the UFO grapevine.
The transcript of the conversation between the Coast Guard and the police and the trawler crew was leaked to the local news, and it suddenly became this huge UFO incident that got to the attention of the local MP.
The sighting gathered such momentum, even local Labour MP Martin Redmond got embroiled and started asking difficult questions.
Martin Redmond said, look, you've got police officers seeing UFOs, you've got Royal Air Force officers tracking them on radar, and yet you don't even get the aircraft in the air to take a look at this thing.
Here's a copy of the letter that Martin Redmond MP sent to the Right Honourable Michael Portillo, Secretary of State for Defence, and he says, I'm very concerned about an incident that occurred off the East Anglian coast recently involving a visual unidentified flying craft sighting, which was correlated by various different military radar systems. While I'm interested in finding out what was seen, my primary concern stems from the absolute shambles that such an event seemed to cause. So he's really sort of having a go at the Ministry of Defence and saying, you know, why didn't you react to this? What are the RAF doing? So this really stung the RAF.
The files reveal a picture of chaos. The letter sparked off an MOD investigation to explain the RAF's resistance. Doug Robb was operations manager on the night. We showed him the MOD findings. He wasn't surprised by the conclusions.
This diagram is the radar plots over Boston on that night. And in summary, it shows that Claxby picked up the object, but it didn't move, and it was on land. And after investigation, it was decided that it was the Church Tower, the Boston Stump, as it's known.
The files were certain this was the culprit.
The church is known in aviation circles as the Boston Stump, and appears occasionally on some radars in certain radar propagation conditions.
They said that this was a completely separate phenomenon to the bright stationary lights that had been seen by the police from Boston and Skegness and by the tanker crew.
The report concluded there was no justification to order the scramble of RAF fighters, much to the chagrin of the local MP, Martin Redmond.
You'd scramble for a high-speed incoming aircraft 200 miles away, but you're not going to scramble the aircraft for a fixed object on land. I mean, what's the threat?
If what the radar picked up was indeed a church, what then were the mysterious lights seen by the police and the tanker crew? The MOD scrutinized the police video footage.
It suggests a distant celestial source.
The MOD sent the footage onto the Royal Greenwich Observatory for analysis. Their report has been kept buried since 1996 in the MOD files. UFO and astronomy expert Ian Ridpath was shown their conclusions and the police video.
If you look at the police video, you can see it's just a bright dot of light just sitting there, not appearing to do anything. So, to me, this shows that even the most impeccable witnesses can actually make what is really a basic mistake, which is just misidentifying bright celestial objects. Well, the most common culprit is the planet Venus. In fact, it's called the Queen of the UFOs, and this is because it's the brightest object in the night sky after the sun and the moon, which could have been what the police were seeing.
He also believes there's an explanation for the colours of the lights.
When the camera zooms in, very often the camera will completely lose focus, and you can actually see some odd shape to the light, which is actually the diaphragm of the camera.
But this doesn't explain what the tanker crew observed. The MOD investigation found that they saw a light coming from a different direction to Venus. And they were baffled.
These lights remain unexplained.
But expert Ian Ridpath believes there is an answer.
The object that the tanker saw to the north, I think, was another bright star called Vega, which is also just appearing to twinkle and flash multicolored lights.
UFO expert and skeptic Dave Clark believes there is a reason why this escalated into such a major incident.
This happened in 1996, which was the very height of the popularity of the X-Files series on TV. It was the biggest sort of year, the 1996-97, in terms of number of reports they received since 1978.
So is this case closed for East Anglia? Or will more mystery emerge, just as it has, with one of Britain's most celebrated cases that refuses to go away, the Welsh Roswell? In 1974, in North Wales, thousands of people experienced a violent earth tremor and lights were seen falling from the sky. Some ufologists believe a UFO crashed, and there's been a cover-up ever since of the Welsh Roswell.
Oh, a heck of a bell, yes. Oh, yes, it's like a tremor. It was in the house, shook the houses. We're in your houses.
And it seemed to come right on top of their head until the house was coming down.
There were lights coming from the top of the mountain, just up over there.
24th of January 1974 at 21:50 GMT. 5 bodies spectacularly incandescent were observed traversing the sky.
New information has been revealed that opens the mystery further. Named as one of the main witnesses in the Berwyn incident is Hugh Lloyd, then a 14-year-old farmer's son. Just after 8:30 p.m., Hugh's family felt the massive earth tremor. It was a frightening experience. Almost 40 years on, Hugh still remembers that day as if it were yesterday.
It was like this thud, and straight away the whole place started shaking very violently. The light flickered in the lights in the picture on television, snow on the screen. But we were all frightened. We didn't have a clue what it was. And Enoch said it must be an explosion, and then the phone started ringing. Hello? Like neighbours, phoning to ask, did you feel that? And then roughly about 20 minutes, there was a knock on the door. And there was a police officer there. And he said, we've had reports there's a plane crash that's come down on the Berwyn, and we'd like to commandeer your Land Rover to go up there. Me being 14, I said, well, Enoch, you better drive it. We carried on up the mountain about half a mile, maybe 3/4. We drove up the track and we stopped, got out and got torches, and it was very quiet and very dark, but nothing to be seen.
How are we going with the torch?
One of them said, there's nothing here. It's too quiet, we can't see anything. We might as well go down. So we turned back to the vehicles, and as we were approaching the vehicles, we saw this very bright white light. It's up the valley, just behind those trees there, up to the left in the valley between those two mountains. A very bright white light, coming up from the ground, pointing upwards. But it was, very, very bright. I knew it was coming from the ground, but we couldn't actually see the source of the light because it was, in the valley itself, being hidden. The light didn't look like a plane crash. It was too white for a fire. It didn't last for very long. 20 seconds was at the most.
They searched the mountainside, but there was no sign of a crash. So what was the light? Ufologist Andy Roberts has researched the Berwyn UFO for years. Although a skeptic, he admits there is a central mystery to the incident involving another key witness.
At a village nearby called Llanderfel, there was a district nurse called Pat Evans. She felt the explosion there, and because she was a nurse and had all the medical equipment, thought if a plane's crashed, I could get up there and give much needed help until the emergency services arrived.
Pat Evans was with her 2 teenage daughters, 4 miles from Hugh Lloyd when the earth tremor hit.
So she picked up her 2 young daughters, got them in the car, drove the 10-15 minute drive up onto the B4391 road, expecting to see an aircraft crashed and in flames. This is the road that she was driving on, and it's a road that she knew very well, so she had no problems driving up here at night. And obviously she was out there looking for what she thought was going to be a plane disaster. And just as she came out from the other side of this copse of trees, she was absolutely astonished to see far across the hills to the left a huge ball of red, white, orange, pulsating light.
Whatever the object was, it was too far from the road to be reached on foot. Pat and her daughters watched, astounded at the ball of light, slowly pulsating and changing colour.
She described it as being half the size of the moon, and around this object were moving torchlights and vehicle lights. She realised that it clearly wasn't a crashed aircraft and that someone or some people were there attending to whatever it was, and realising that, she drove back home and went to bed, and to this day is completely mystified by what it was.
So what did Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd see that night? We reveal that even the arrival of the mysterious men in black couldn't provide all the answers. The unidentified sightings by Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd in Berwyn, Wales in 1974 have gone down in UFO folklore. The recently released MOD files have added even more mystery. Researchers from the British Geological Survey were quickly dispatched to Berwyn to investigate an earth tremor that had registered 3.5 on the Richter scale.
Immediately after the earthquake, we were getting a lot of reports, some of them rather complex ones about lights in the sky, lights on the hill. So I brought a small team of people down to ask the local people around here what they'd seen, what they'd heard, what they'd felt.
The British Geological Survey team have become known in Berwyn legend as the Men in Black, as they were dressed in dark suits, official-looking, and were going door to door.
Some people seem to think the whole event was rather suspicious and that we, simple scientists from the Geological Survey, had something to do with suspicious events around here.
Files containing Chris's notes recall his interview with nurse Pat Evans, who saw the unidentified light.
I have here the notes that I made when I talked to Pat Evans. She felt the shaking, but also she was very concerned about lights that she saw in the sky. She thought there was a big red light, like a glowing red fire. This is a copy of one of the maps that we, with our team, used when we were going around the area talking to people, and we were able, therefore, to put on the map exactly where we got that interview from, and therefore exactly what that person saw, heard and felt.
This British Geological Survey map, buried in the vaults, is a revelation. It shows the anomalous lights seen by Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd both appeared in the same small area of hillside at the same time. Ufologist Andy Roberts returns to the same spot on the mountainside where Pat and her daughters saw the UFO, and where Pat Evans told her story to Andy Roberts in 1998.
When I brought Pat Evans up onto this mountain road in 1998 and she told me her story then, I photographed her, and the photograph that I took showed her pointing to where she saw what she saw in 1974, and judging by this photograph, she was pointing over there, and which we know is where the police and farmers were searching that night.
Pat Evans was on the Llangannock to Welshpool Road, which is just, well, just beyond the forestry there. So if she was there, she probably saw the same lights as we saw. You know, because just dead in line. I'm sure, I'm nearly positive that's the same lights as she saw.
The recent files show the MOD's explanation for the sudden explosion and mysterious lights.
Subsequent search of the hillsides in question revealed no sign of impact, however. The Meteorological Office considered that these sightings could have been occasioned by a bolide, that is to say a meteor which enters the Earth's atmosphere and burns up before reaching the ground. A private investigation done on behalf of the British Astronomical Society concluded, however, that the meteor may in fact have disintegrated over Manchester and that its appearance was preceded at 8:30 p.m. by an earth tremor in the Berwyn Mountains with which it has no connection.
In regards to the UFO phenomenon. So if you capture anything amazing, submit it to us via Skype, Facebook, Twitter, and we'll be checking out your incredible videos. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time. All right, we're here going up the world's steepest road in the United States of America. And let me tell you, it's a hairball situation. I'm gonna put it into third gear and we're gonna take this all the way. Like I said, world's steepest road in the state of the United States of America. Here we go, let's gun it. Everybody hang on now. Okay. Now this is about almost, I'd say it's 60% incline right there, and we just hurdled it. Now look at this. We're in four-wheel drive lockdown in our Wrangler, and it's pretty much handling it quite well. Everybody, thanks for joining us here at Third Phase of Moon, and if it wasn't for you watching the skies, submitting your incredible videos, wow, we wouldn't be here like I was just saying earlier. Everybody, take care. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time.
This is Blake Cousins, founder of Third Phase of Moon. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Hey, thanks, Dr. J. Great roundtable tonight. I wanted to get to, we're working on something special, something incredible. It's DARPA. What's DARPA up to? We at Third Phase of Moon want to find out what's going on at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DARPA is up to something big. They've been doing this since 1958. Their headquarters are in Arlington, Virginia, and they have 240 employees, and they have $1 billion budget. These aircraft that DARPA's using and building from reverse Elling technology, it's something incredible, something that needs to be investigated. We're looking for people that are on the inside of DARPA. There's only 240 employees. What's the turnover rate over there? Somebody has had to been fired from there or want to speak out. We're looking for DARPA employees that want to talk and share what's going on over there, because something's going on. These aircraft are something straight out of a Star Trek movie, but they don't look like UFOs. UFOs and these other videos that we get right here at Third Phase Moon, they're unconventional. DARPA keeps it conventional, but still there's that edge. Is anybody on the... What do you think about
I've
that?
actually worked on a few DARPA projects, and usually they're cutting edge. The stuff that I was doing was semiconductor stuff. Typically, always trying to push the envelope, and that's typical with DARPA projects. Is they're always trying to push the envelope of whatever particular technology. So
DARPA, I think what they're doing is reverse engineering. Obviously, I think it's a given. Obviously, we've had craft since at least 1936. Hitler had. We've had them since 1942, the Cape Girardeau incident in Missouri, unless you want to go back to the 1896 case in Aurora, Texas. But obviously to say that we have had ET craft and have not reverse engineered them would be very stupid.
Well, that's, if you want to look for the ET connection, if you look at Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, he says that the technologies that were released were semiconductors, night vision, and lasers, right? Exactly. There's a trifecta.
Kevlar,
right there.
Kevlar too.
Well, Kevlar, yeah. But from my standpoint, I happened to be in the optics industry, which dealt with semiconductors, lasers, and night vision. So that was kind of,
And he seeded that technology into what we're using
and
right
DARPA,
now.
of course, feeds it. They basically do they fund the high tech, the state of the art stuff, and then that all filters down.
Mr. Kelly, let me ask you. So you say yourself you worked on the DARPA project?
I worked on, when I was in the optics industry, making parts for photolithography systems and stuff like that, microphotolithography, semiconductors, servicing the semiconductor industry. Several projects that came through there over the years were DARPA, but typically, I can tell you exactly what they were. They had to do with printing the mask of the semiconductors. In other words, the master patterns for the photo masks. And
let me ask you, Mr. Lee, thanks for coming back on Third Phase Moon. There was a lot of comments on the Illuminati came forward, and you gave a lot of information. People were really interested in your insight. But when the annual budget claimed by Wikipedia is that it's $1 billion and there's only 240 employees, That's accurate?
Blake, let me jump in for that. I got to tell you, is obviously what's written as the budget is not the real budget. And I know this for a fact because this SEAL, who's not into conspiracies or anything at all, he was just a normal Navy SEAL who was in Vietnam from 66 to 69. And then he did 2 mercenary missions. And he said every single mission during the SEALs and the mercenaries after came from the CIA. Well, both mercenary missions were to guard giant cargo ships full of coke, 2 coming to the U.S., one from Peru, one from Colombia.
But that's not DARPA, John.
But that's black ops.
A lot of people,
that's funding black ops, though.
Well, see, but that's another thing. I was involved in that too. But the DARPA thing is different. DARPA really does go out to industry in the form of grants and contracts to make advanced stuff. And assemble advanced stuff, and so it's very much a technical construction arm of the, and if you will, a de-engineering farm too, no doubt. Certainly, obviously, they were de-engineering equipment, and that's why they were able to direct this. They knew what to build. They could write these specifications, advanced specifications, because they knew what direction they were trying to head with this stuff. So, but
well, that's exactly, you hit it right on the button, because in 1958 they originally established DARPA as their original mission to prevent surprise, like a launch from a Sputnik or Soviets had beaten us to the States, but now they're also creating this to surprise our enemies, and this keeps changing. They actually changed their name from ARPA to DARPA. When you were working there, was it ARPA or DARPA?
Okay, well, that's what you're talking about. That's the predecessor to the Internet, where they had the ARPANET and the DARPANET. But, gosh, what was I going to say? The thing about this, it's a little bit different, the technology stuff. I'm sorry, I kind
of... Well, Maxwell, on DARPA. Maxwell, I want to ask you on DARPA and also HARP, because you mentioned about the ley lines of the Earth. And there seems to be a natural energy why there's cities at certain places and, 33 degrees and all the rest of that. I know you know about that kind of stuff. So what's your take on both DARPA and HARP and the ley lines? Go ahead.
John Bearden and Dr. Bob Beck were talking about ELF, the extreme low frequency, and the woodpecker effect coming out of Russia. Woodpecker is still, I guess, in operation. You hear it on shortwave. And so the whole concept of using frequencies and high technology, what they call over-the-horizon radar, to create earthquakes, to create hurricanes and volcanoes down, I don't know. There's all kinds of high technology that's been known for many years. And Tesla was doing that kind of stuff a long time ago. And so the guy you really want to listen to on that kind of stuff is Colonel Tom Bearden. You can find him on the web and just listen to some of the stuff he's talking about DARPA, but he's talking about the occult and heavy-duty stuff that this government and other governments around the world are actually doing. And I would throw in something that you might want to look up. It's called the woodpecker. A lot of people may not know what I'm talking about, but it's a very interesting subject. Just look up woodpecker effect, and you will see that both Russia and America have been using this kind of high technology, ELF, extreme low frequency, to cause people to go crazy, causing people to get angry, causing people to become confused electrically. So all of this stuff has been known. I mean, I'm sure it was enforced as far back as maybe the 40s and 50s, but it started to come out in the 70s. This high technology using electronics to confuse people, to cause strange cloud formations, and of course that brings in HARP. So all of this stuff is very legitimate. It's very, very real, but there's a lot of good stuff out there now, a lot of good information on it now that wasn't there back in the 70s when we were originally talking about it.
Look into Bob Beck, guys.
Yeah.
Congress sent Bob Beck to Russia to investigate the woodpecker, and he basically smuggled some gear in there that allowed him to analyze the frequency and figure out what was going on.
And he was a dear friend of mine for many, many years.
Yeah. He was a friend of mine too, George.
Yeah.
He used to hang out at my shop and buy lasers for me to use as pointers at his lectures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved him. He was a wonderful, wonderful man.
He always wanted the most powerful laser. You know, it had to be twice as powerful as what anybody else had.
They keep changing their story and their name. If you've worked for ARPA or DARPA, we'd like to interview you on Third Phase of the Moon and find out what's going on behind the scenes. Everybody keep your eyes in the sky, and if you captured anything amazing, send it to Third Phase of the Moon via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins. We'll see you.
Wow, look at it light that up. Wow.
Welcome back to Third Phase of the Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and we're going over breaking news that we just released on YouTube. Third Phase of the Moon. We're just about to hit 100 million views on our YouTube channel alone. Everybody subscribe to get the latest breaking news about UFOs from around the world. I just wanted to go over an incredible video just in tonight. We're going to discuss it with Dr. J. Andy Elias and former FBI agent Ben Hansen. He went over this video that we're looking at right now. Incredible footage captured from within a plane of what looks to be mysterious lights below. Dr. J, I wanted to get your opinion first of what you thought of this video just into Third Phase.
You know, I honestly, the genuineness of the people on board that were witnessing this craft, of the person recording, clearly you could tell because it's a vertical thing, a vertical shot. It's from an iPhone. But obviously, as Ben Hansen said earlier, you know, they could have won an Academy Award. They definitely saw something out there. I don't think it's CGI. It's definitely in the air.
Well, the first thing that I noticed with this is it caught my attention that the light was moving a little bit. It didn't look like it was in conjunction with the camera shake, and I thought, well, this could be CGI, computer generated imaging that is showing what we call an error in tracking. It's when you animate something, you have to anchor it to the rest of the objects or the background in the film. And I was thinking that this object wasn't tracking correctly at first. But the more I looked at this, I realized this didn't appear to be the issue. In fact, it looks as if the light and the way that it wobbles a tiny bit in the first of the 3 videos probably is only due to something we call shutter roll. This is a rolling shutter effect with the CMOS sensors in a lot of cameras. And what ends up happening is sort of a blurring effect, or it looks like the image is wobbling. So the reactions of the people seem pretty genuine to me. It actually take a pretty professional job to fake reactions like this that are so spontaneous. They seem appropriate with the background of the chatter and everything you're hearing on the plane. It wasn't over dramatized. They didn't act as if they were reading from a script. It sounded very legitimate and real to me. So my opinion is that whatever's captured in this video most likely is happening in camera.
It's going towards it. Whoa! Oh man, look at that! Do you see that?
Yeah, we're looking at the videos, and now we're about to enhance it and zoom it in about 2,000% and put some brightness contrast to this, so we could even get a better look at these videos that came in. And there's some new information about what was going on in regards to this, and we can all hear people's reactions in real time. This is something incredible, but they were on their way from a business trip from Vegas to Chicago, and they're thinking this is closer to Vegas. So, and it was shot in what was it, March or May 9th, 2013. So there's old UFO videos out there. He said he couldn't share it with Third Phase of the Moon because he had a hard time editing these 3 clips together and zooming in on the UFO. And that's what we do here. What we do here at Third Phase of the Moon is analyze these videos. What do you think of looking at the trifecta, John? Like you see it from one light and then it transforms into a triangle formation.
You know, that's definitely not the first of a UFO doing that. As people have seen, and many times they will see one light all of a sudden turn into 3 or 5. They will see one ball or even a cylinder turn into a triangle. So it's not uncommon that they are actually shape-shifting. The other possibility is that they were seeing it as it's coming in through one dimension, possibly as one light, and then as it got closer it turned into 3. Or the other option is it really was 3 objects that came in together, because there are cases in the past, Blake, that did have multiple UFOs stacked together that came forward and then released to multiple.
Wow, look at it light that up. Wow.
It appears to be maybe a half an hour of time. We're looking at something where the sun is probably just set beforehand. In the third video, it's actually quite dark. I wouldn't be surprised if this happened over about a half an hour. In the last videos, though, what you'll see is part of the reflection of the inside of the plane. So the other passengers, you're kind of seeing them, you know, backlit and reflecting. So there is some of that, but the object and the light is consistent throughout all the 3 videos. That there's something illuminated. It makes me believe that this is actually happening down beneath and outside of the plane, not an artifact of camera reflection or something inside. Plus you have the witnesses who are corroborating. We're led to believe probably someone in the row behind them or in front of them is also seeing the same thing, which, you know, angles of camera flares and things like that just wouldn't match up. Weather phenomena, I don't think so. The only thing I could think of, it was a pretty clear day. It didn't look like there was much haze at all. And I don't think that anything such as ball lightning or a weather phenomenon that would be very rare, you know, would continue, especially for such a great amount of time as what we're seeing over several minutes. And for this thing to kind of undulate, it looks like a snake with a trail of light following behind it, which is very, very strange. So it's a great video. It really is. To me, I'm going to have to put this in the box of I have no clue. This doesn't fit typical UFO description of solid object, of triangular object. It doesn't even fit the description of light anomalies that we're familiar with.
For everybody out there who was on that flight, contact Third Phase of Moon. Whether you were a witness that just heard people saying they saw something, or you were one of the people actually looking out the window, contact Blake Cousins in Third Phase of Moon.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Ben, for joining us right here, going over this incredible breaking news. Everybody look at the videos. We've contrasted it, again, zoomed in, listened to the reactions, and if anybody has old footage, you know, whether it goes back to the 60s, Super 8, high VHS, Super VHS, we want to go over it, look at it, zoom in on it, because I know there's an archive of UFOs still waiting to be seen and shared to the world. Everybody keep your eyes on the skies. My name is Blake Cousins. We'll see you again next time.
Wow, look at it light that up. Wow.
There they go.
Blake Cousins here at Third Phase of Moon with breaking news. Ed is in contact with us right now. He's just shared incredible video of what looks to be a star ship, a beam ship of some sort, shooting vertically in the night sky. Ed's with us right now. His videos are going viral. The people have shared his videos, asking the big questions. They're all over the internet. Ed's footage over the past couple months have been so, you know, exciting in the UFO world right now. People are amazed. And tell me, what's the circumstance behind this video? And welcome back to Third Phase.
Yeah, Blake, thanks for having me back. This was shot in 1987, right after I was getting off the ship. It was my first time on the ship with Voss.
Okay, Okay, Ed, explain, let's backpedal a little bit because I want to concentrate on this video that we're looking at. And we're zooming in, we're analyzing these photos, and we're not seeing any thing that could say that this is a hoax of any kind. Ed, let me ask you right now, is this a hoax? Because people just want to know this straight up, and we'll move along.
There they go. No, this is authentic footage that I shot after being on the ship for the first time. It delivered me back within feet of my truck. I went back to my truck, grabbed my camera, and I had to backpedal to get some footage before it left.
All right, Ed, we got to get these questions, the hardcore ones, out of the way first. Now let's get into detail. This incredible video we're looking at, we're going to share it to the world. Everybody's going to make up their own mind and decide what's going on here. Okay, Ed, so you were aboard the ship. This video right now is as they were taking off and leaving, and you say you were backpedaling, getting the shot. What happened before this on board this ship?
Blake, this was my first time on the ship, and I had seen this ship many times. I think I've sent you other video footage of the ship that I ended up going on with, and the contact I had identified himself as Voss through telepathic communication. There was no voice. And this was my first time on the ship. And right after I got delivered back through this same beam of light that you see the ship departing with, I was able to get back to my truck and shoot this footage.
We're looking at this footage. You know, it takes off right behind the tree. What's the size of this craft?
This ship was about the size of a small house. It was probably about 80 feet to 120 feet in length, and the height of it was maybe 2/3 of that. But the beam of light, the light coming off this, is something that the video captured, but it was different in person.
Did this make any sound? It seems like it's almost a rocket booster, a thrust of some sort, rocket engineered.
No sound at all, Blake. It didn't make any sound. There was no sound at all, Blake.
You know, we're talking right before you shared this video, that you're saying that this isn't you have somebody in your family that...
I mentioned that my uncle was a lieutenant in the Air Force during World War II. He was the one that I first saw an unidentified flying object with. It happened when I was a young boy, and it happened more than once, but it happened with my uncle. And after my uncle died at a young age, he was only 66 when he died, I continued to have these visitations, and I continue to have them today. I think the only reason why I have ever had contacts with UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence is because of my uncle. And it makes me think of Voss, because it's the same kind of telepathic communication that happened with my uncle and I. There were a lot of things left unsaid, but that were clearly understood.
Ed, a few days ago, we posted this incredible video of a classic metallic flying saucer, and you know, it doesn't get much better than this. I didn't get your comments of what the circumstance behind that was, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the video. You see apparitions flying by. It almost looks like something's jettisoning out of the UFO. What was going on in this shot right here?
Yeah, Blake, I just dug these up, and this was a great discovery to make again. This came in about 1986. It might have been as early as 1984. There's two of these here, and they're different. They look similar, but they're actually different craft. But they are in the same area of the country. I was in South Carolina at that time, and you know, I spoke of my uncle and my introduction to these craft through him. That was my first experience, and this is experience that I had before. And what I'm coming up with is some interesting stuff, but as I told you the first time we spoke, this is a part of my life, but it's not the only part of my life. And I know I carried a camera on that ship, but I also know that there's a different force of energy working there. So I'll look in my archives and see what I might be able to discover for you. But it's a different environment, one where our alternating current is not functioning. I'll see what I can come up with. As I find this is enjoyable for me. I'm having a good time looking at these old archives and digging the stuff up. And as I said before, this is just a part of my life, like there's another part of my life. You know, when I first experienced the UFO with my uncle, it was not long after Neil Armstrong had first walked on the moon. And, you know, this just seemed normal to me when I had this experience with my uncle. But what's happened since that time has been very slow. And that's okay, because this is just another part of my life. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, we all heard last week about ex-President Clinton coming on the news and saying, you know, the aliens are coming. I mean, this is common knowledge. The aliens are already here.
How does that make you feel, Ed, that, you know, these ETs are making contact with you, and the you know, presidents of the United States can't even prove that ET exists, and, you know, Area 51 once held the bodies crashed from Roswell, and, you know, they have the alien technology, and presidents can't even be involved with that, and you're making contact with them.
Well, Blake, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'll just tell you, I've had these experiences, maybe we're counting 60 experiences I've had, visitations, being on alien craft, seeing these objects, communicating with Voss, my history. So I don't look at it in terms of the way other skeptics might look. And I truly believe that this is much bigger than any Area 51 or whatever happened with the president. This is much bigger than that kind of detail. They brought me on the ship with Voss, escorting me into another room where they presented to me an image that I saw. I can only describe it as being a hologram, where this image was floating in free space, and this image was me, and it was who I was. That's what they were communicating to me telepathically. They were saying to me that this is you, and this definition of me through this hologram image that was like a DNA chain, a mathematical formula of my genotype, and what they were communicating to me was that this was in compliance of what they wanted to be. This was welcoming to them. This was friendly to them. This was what they wanted, and this was positive, and they were almost congratulating me for who I was.
We want the details, Ed, and these photos and videos that you continuously submit. We're looking forward to you keep digging into your archives and sharing what it is. You have Super 8s. You need help to recover some film. We'd love to do that. Ed, thanks again for joining us at Third Phase Moon. You keep in touch.
It's my pleasure, Blake. I appreciate Third Phase of Moon and your forum for me to share my archives with, and I'll keep looking to see what I have. Maybe I have something that you're interested in, and we can share with other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And wow, we just wanted to do it like we do it at Third Phase of Moon. Share it in real time, liquid information. It's like a faucet of water, continuously streaming live to the people around the world. Everybody keep your eyes on the skies. And if you've captured anything amazing in regards to the UFO phenomenon, submit it to Third Phase via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins. We'll see you again next time.
There they go. There they go. That's it. See you, boss.
By popular demand, we are pleased to announce the Third Phase of Moon album is finally featured on iTunes. With all your favorite songs and themes you hear on the top UFO channel on YouTube, Third Phase of Moon. Out of This World soundtracks composed by master artist Paul Barrett. With 12 remastered and extended cuts to enjoy. Download them now, exclusive on iTunes. Click the link in the description below. Now listen for yourself, heard by millions around the world, Paul Barrett's album, Third Phase of Moon. Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and in this week's episode, we're going over 2 incredible videos submitted to us right here at Third Phase. Now let's get to it. Now for our first video, shot from Austin, Texas by Jason, who describes this incredible object as a sight to behold. Notice the light blinking underneath the craft. This isn't no FAA regulated lights. What is this object?
There it goes behind them trees. Look at that. No way a UFO would need landing lights. I wish this thing would focus in a little better. There he goes behind the trees.
Unidentified flying object. Unidentified flying object.
It's going into that light. Hard to see. Still see it going behind them trees. It's right over downtown Austin, Texas.
Unidentified flying object.
And I can't see it anymore. Still see it on film though. It's gone though, I can't see it at all. Look at how it lights up right there. What do you think that could be?
We want to thank Jason all the way from Austin, Texas for submitting his incredible video to us right here at Third Phase of Moon. Now for our second video, we received a call from Amanda all the way from Michigan while we're live on the radio show, and she submitted this incredible film. Take a look at it.
Unidentified flying object.
When I first received the video, I didn't notice and realize what Amanda was explaining to me on the radio was that there was a massive skyscraper-sized UFO, triangular in shape, hovering over this mansion.
Could this be a TR-3B, a reverse-engineered alien military aircraft? You decide.
I'm recording now, because what I thought I was taking a video before, and I think I am right now, but yeah, I think I am. It's right above me. It's hard to tell how high it is. No. I'll show you the video, because right now I am taking a video. Oh my god, it's gonna be on the news. It has to be. Somebody else has to be seeing this. I'm in Novi, like in my brother's neighborhood. It's weird because, yeah. Let me get another. I wish you were here. You would be freaking out. Yeah, I'm taking good footage now because there's a perspective, like there's a house in perspective, and now it's kind of going far away now. Oh, it's kind of leaving. It's going east. Oh my, they have to know I'm here. Oh my god. I'm seeing my first UFO. Like, no, 100%. There's no way, unless somebody has a remote controlled thing, which there's no, because I still see it. It's like, oh my god.